how it was constructed, in what context it was constructed, and obviously its voice. And what I mean by voice is, because remember, this is a piece of literature, right? So it's going to be complex, it's going to be challenging, but you don't have to discuss every little thing. It's not necessary. So what you want to do is understand its purpose, the reason why it's literature, and how it's functioning and its context. And I think if you keep those things in mind, then the novel will start to unravel, and then the language will become more accessible, because a lot of times with literature, it's set in a certain period or time where we're not familiar with, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is in the 20s.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's even. Do you know which part of the 20s it's in?
What part?
Yeah, because that decade, of course, 20s in the United States too. Not the 20s of the whole world. It's 20s for the United States.
The earlier,
so,
I think it's between 2010s to 2020.
Yes, but what do we call this time period? Of course, in American.
It's golden jazz.
Okay, good. Actually, you know something about it already. Yeah. So yes, the jazz movement, that was when it really took off. That's right. Yeah. Anything else you know?
I think that moment is before the First World War, and then
correct. Yeah.
I mean,
no, it'd be before. Yeah, before. Wait, before or after?
Oh.
It's after. It's after the war.
After the war, yes.
Yeah, after World War I.
Yes.
Yeah, because Gatsby claims that he's a soldier, right? That's one of the things that he claims that he is.
Yeah. He get rich after the war, after he came back from the army. Right.
Well, he claims this, right? So we'll find out more. It unravels for him, and of course, this is a tragedy. The novel is a tragedy, right? So it ends very. Do you know the ending at all?
I watched the movie. I know the ending. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Which movie did you watch? The recent one or the old one?
I think the recent one.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't seen that one, but okay. So today, basically what I'm going to try to do is to give you some context of when the story was, and understand, if we get this far, possibly with characterization, how the characters are set and how they're interacting. But I think most importantly, because this is a very specific time period, and it's something that you and I have not. Well, maybe in China, I don't know. Maybe it's called the Roaring Twenties. That's what they call it, the Roaring Twenties. So maybe China recently has experienced something similar to this. Yeah. Right. So the last 20 decades or 20 years, the last 2 decades, China has really, its economy has boomed. You actually might see some similarities between the Gatsby and also China. It might be quite interesting to see your viewpoint. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think you can make some really good links, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so just a little bit about Fitzgerald. It's not all that important, but it's nice to have a little bit of knowledge about who he is. So he was born a family of mixed financial fortunes. He does go to Princeton. You've probably heard of Princeton, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good university. He did go to the Army, so he does have, it's somewhat autobiographical. The story about the Gatsby is somewhat autobiographical by Fitzgerald. He does enter World War I, but he didn't see any action. He wasn't involved in the actual war. Yeah, he gets married, and then he publishes his first book in 1920, and then his wife has a daughter, and then he publishes The Great Gatsby in 1925. Okay, and he died quite early. He's quite young.
Yeah.
44. So just the question there is, how are the events in Fitzgerald's life reflective of the events in The Great Gatsby, do you think? So, is there any similarities?
Yeah, I think most of the plots in this Great Gatsby book is based on a story that the author experienced. First his first girlfriend, and the second his marriage. There is some similarity.
Yeah. Most authors will write things that they experience. It's difficult to write anything successfully if you haven't experienced it. So but you'll see some similarities. I think the big thing is that, of course, the World War I, right? So that's similar. Yeah. And also he experienced the Roaring '20s after the war. And like you said, perhaps, having a girlfriend and a wife. Okay? All right, let's move on. So now these are the building blocks of a narrative. I don't know if you want to take a screenshot of that.
I can take a screenshot.
Or a photograph. But these are the types of things that we will be looking at, right? So the places, this is where the action takes place. Can you tell me, it's also called setting, all right? So do you know where the story takes place? What about the first chapter? Where is it?
First chapter is taking place at the Long Island of New York State.
Yes, yeah. It actually isn't. It's fictional. I mean, he created it kind of like the Long Island, but actually it's all fiction. The eggs, the West Egg and the East Egg, that's all fiction. He made that up, right? But it's obviously he used those areas because they're familiar to him, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what are the time and sequence? So how long does the story take place from start to beginning? How long does it take? Approximately.
30 years?
No.
No.
It'd be about a week.
A week.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the whole time and sequence happens. Well, if you look at Greek tragedy, for example, right?
Yeah.
All Greek tragedy must happen within 24 hours.
24. Okay.
Yeah. Macbeth, 24 hours.
Okay.
So yeah, so the Gatsby, we're not sure exactly, or I'm not sure exactly, but I don't think there's any indication in the novel exactly how long it is. But it's not a very long period of time. I mean, you have some key events. You have when he goes to the Buchanan's house. You have the party, at least one. I think there might be two. You have when they go to New York. There's a night in New York where they get drunk and he's drinking and that type of thing. And then, of course, you have the car crash, and then you have the murder, right? The end. So, I mean, those events all happen within a kind of a short period of time. I would guess a week would be my best guess. Okay, so it's not all that long period of time, to be honest. Now, there's some reflection. There's some flashbacks to when he was younger, when he met Daisy, right? But that doesn't actually happen during those time periods. It's just a flashback.
Oh, okay. I thought it maybe at least like months or years, because I remember in the movie, Gatsby had dated, meets Daisy, and then they have some dating. So
yeah, it's not in the book.
Happened for a month, at least a month.
No, I don't think so. No, there's not that I know about, that I remember, but there's no. I think the director of the movie wants to give the context to the story, so they create that to create tension, right? To create, but in a novel it can be one line. It doesn't have to be a whole scene, right? So in a movie they have to make 10 minutes or 15 minutes of the past. But in a book you don't have to. You can make one sentence is enough. All right? Okay. The characters. Now the character traits are very interesting. It's part of the strength of the novel actually is in the construction of the characters. Okay? And we'll talk about that in more detail. But is there something that sticks out in your mind that you can remember about the character? Let's talk about Nick Calloway. What's interesting about him?
Interesting about Nick.
What's unique? What's his function in the book?
He's a narrator.
Yeah, good, excellent. Yeah, so he's a narrator, right? He's we call a peripheral narrator. So he's involved, right? But he's not directly involved.
Yes.
So he's describing what happens between Gatsby and his guests and Daisy and so on and so forth, right? Yes. So he's present, but he's not directly involved. So he's what we call a peripheral. So he's just on the outside.
Yeah.
So what might be the problem with that?
Be a problem? Problem, I think it may be so I mean the reader has to learn the whole story through his opinion, through what he what he look and understand. So there may have some judgment, and also the reader may judge that if the value the narrator put in the story is right or wrong. So because it's all based on his stance.
Correct. So 100% correct. Well done. Excellent answer. So he's unreliable.
Yeah.
The reader is very conscious of the fact that he's telling things through his own. It's called mind's eye. It's the mind and the eye and the mind. It's a metaphor, right? So he's telling MINDEYE, mind's eye, or apostrophe S. He's telling the story through his own eyes. He and his ethics and his morals and his values on the situation are coming through his narration. So some things he gives lots of detail about, and some things he doesn't. Sometimes he focuses on insignificant things and gives lots of detail, but the significant things he doesn't.
Yeah.
And when you read the next couple of chapters, you will see that in more detail, that he's really unreliable. He's not, which makes it interesting, because the fact of the matter is that it is a tragedy. So we, the reader, want to know what happens, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're not sure if we're getting the full story.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So this is actually go on the third point, the voices. All right. So we're told the information is coming from them, right? So we get the information about them or about each other from them. Okay. This is also part of the narration. Okay. Point of view. What's this now?
Point of view. I will read it. Okay. The perspective from which events are told. First or third person narrative, where we as readers are placed in the telling of story, is vital to the way we interpret it. This does not just refer to your physical position, but also your beliefs and values.
Right.
Yeah.
So which point of view is the novel told through? Which perspective? It's first person, right?
Yeah. You mean the point of view from me as a reader or from the author?
Yeah. Right.
From the author. Oh, okay. I think his point of view is that for some people in that times, they are try their best to earn money and to enter the enter the class of the society to be rich. But then but the author wants to say sometimes the dream is just a bubble, so it eventually will explode, and
right.
the dreams.
So it is. You're right. You're 100% correct. Well done. So it's told from a first person perspective, not third person. There are three perspectives. One is first person, second person, and third person. So first person is I, right? So it's told from the individual. Second person is you. So you did this, you did that. The third person is told from a position where it's they, and them, and Frank, and Henry, or whatever. Okay. So this novel is told from a first person's perspective. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. A bit like a diary or something like this. Yeah. Okay. So here are the themes. All right. There are actually more than that, but I think these are the main ones. And in order to understand the novel, you kind of have to know the themes. All right. So the first one is society and class. Can you tell me something about that?
Society and class.
Yeah. What does that mean? Like, it doesn't have to relate to the novel. Just what does that theme mean?
The novel or the book should be reflecting the society problem and maybe the confliction between different class.
Right. So divorce it or take it away from the book. Just what does society and class mean? Forget about the novel for now.
Society and class.
Yeah.
It means that the system of the society, like in America, there's some rich and poor, and then middle class.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So what about China? What can you tell me about society and class in China?
Okay. In China, I think for now the class has been go to two different direction, and then for example, there is some people who is rich and they have company, their own company, and there is another level of the person who is the spring, or they are the descendant of the political leaders. So we call them we call them the how do you say it? But it's just the second generation of the rich.
Okay.
They're born to be rich, and they're born to have the power.
Bourgeoisie?
Bourgeoisie? I don't know.
No?
In Chinese, we say 红二代. It's like a red second generation.
Okay, all right.
Because our party is red.
Right. So the class, so in China, is there a certain classism? I mean, people are at a certain height and then people are a certain low? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So in the novel, the same thing applies, right?
Yeah.
And it's still part of American society. I think part of all society, there is that upper rich group who have a lot of power. Now, I don't think in the Roaring 20s, so I don't think now is in the United States and in Canada or the West, it's as much of a divide as it was then, right?
Yeah.
After this, especially after World War II, the middle class was the one that grew the most. Now, the last 10 to 15 years, maybe even 20 years, that middle class group has not benefited very much.
Yeah.
But it still exists. So anyway, the point of the novel is that society is important to them, and they're also very conscious about class. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
What about love?
Yeah, love is it talk about the people's relationship.
Yeah.
Their loves.
So there are different types of love, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the novel, do you think a lot of the love is genuine, or is it fake?
You mean in the novel of Gatsby?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's talk about love affairs.
Yeah. So their morals and ethics of love is pretty loose, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So, but in the novel, there is this commentary on what we perceive love to be, and what actually love is. So it's like appearance versus reality. So it looks this way. They're married for the Buchanans, but actually the reality is that it doesn't really function that way, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and let's move down to wealth.
Wealth.
Yeah.
Okay. Wealth. Wealth.
It's about money, right? It's about
money. There's a book. It's called Poor Daddy and Rich Daddy. Poor dad, rich dad.
So some families have a lot of wealth, and they don't have to. They can. Well, we just saw in the United States, for example. I'm not sure if you saw this, but the college entrance scam. Did you see this?
Yeah. In the recent news, yes.
Yeah. So the very wealthy families were paying, I don't know.
I think there's some coach. I mean, I don't know.
Coaches, they're cheating. It's the biggest scandal in a long time, to be honest.
Yes.
It's massive. So what about isolation? What does that mean?
Isolation.
Let me ask you this question. What's the difference between being alone and being lonely?
Alone is that you're just you, but there's no, I mean, this word has no relationship with your feeling, people's feeling, but lonely, it kind of describe a inner feeling.
Right.
It's not related with a real status life. Even if you are with your family, you may feel lonely. You're
yes.
Not alone.
Right. Right. So lonely is an emotional state.
Emotional.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So how do you feel about the characters? Do you think they're alone? Do you think they're lonely?
From the Nick says that he feels the Gatsby is pretty lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a setting.
Okay, good. Marriage, we talked about already a little bit. Gender, this is an interesting one. This is quite modern, actually. That I don't know if Fitzgerald actually intended this, but there's one particular point in the novel or one character in the novel that's quite interesting to talk about gender.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the difference between sex and gender? Do you know the difference?
Sex and gender, no.
Okay, sex is what you're born with. So you're born either male or female, right? Mm-hmm. It's our biological state, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gender is what we project in society. So you can be your sex can be male, mm-hmm. but your gender can be female.
Oh, okay. Okay. This is I learn about it. Okay.
Yeah. Or other way around, right? So you can be sexually female. So you have all the female gear, but mm-hmm. you project yourself, you project your sexuality as male. Mm-hmm. So I at that time, I don't think there was a lot of conversation about this. There was certainly homosexuality, most definitely. All right, there always has been. There's never been a place where there hasn't been homosexuality, but it wasn't like now in society. Certainly in the West, it's quite. Everyone's talking about it. I mean, it's everywhere, right? But in the novel, there's quite an interesting place. Do you want to take a guess where that might be?
The gender?
Yeah.
Uh,
I'll give you a hint. It's one of the girls.
one of the girl.
Yeah.
A different gender.
Yeah. It's
Um,
Daisy's friend.
this friend is I forget the name.
Jordan. Yeah.
Jordan.
We'll talk more about this later in the unit. Has some more depth. But just to kind of give you an idea, Jordan is can be male or female name.
Jordan. Okay.
Yeah, you can have a male Jordan or you can have female Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
So it's what we call androgynous. So it can have either sex, right?
Okay.
It can signify either sex. There's more to it, but I don't think now is the right time to talk about it. But we will talk about Jordan. She is a very interesting character.
Okay.
And even if as you're reading more, pay attention to how Fitzgerald describes her.
Okay.
Her description is quite fascinating.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if he intentionally did that. I don't know. It may just be luck. Because I don't think this is something they were discussing very much at that time.
Okay.
But now, we're postmodern. This is a modern text. We call modern. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We are now in the postmodern. In the mid '60s, we moved from modernism to postmodernism.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll talk about that more a bit later.
Okay.
Okay. Education.
Education.
I mean, what do they? The main characters, all right. Let's say the ones who live on the eggs, the East and West egg. What is their primary way of gaining wealth?
Primary way to
gain wealth.
Be well.
Become wealthy. What's the vehicle to their wealth?
You mean go to the university?
Yes, exactly, right? So they're all university educated. So the way to get rich is you have to go to university.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
It's interesting that Gatsby, it's not quite clear.
Okay.
He lies. All right.
Yeah.
He changes his name. In fact, I'm not sure if you realize that. Did you know he changed his name?
Change his name? No,
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
Jay Gatsby is not his real name.
Okay.
But we'll talk about this later. Okay. But yeah. Okay. And then compassion and forgiveness. I think it's more like a lack of compassion or forgiveness. I mean, I don't think the reader is convinced that Daisy and Tom, they forgive each other. I don't think we accept that. I don't think. Again, we'll talk about this. These are all themes. So themes run out through the entire novel. They from start to finish. Okay? And they're always a great discussion point. Okay, I'm going to move on. Okay? Any questions?
No. Yeah.
Okay. Good. So what moments in the novel do these books capture, do you think?
Good.
You haven't read the whole novel, have you?
No. Sorry, I didn't catch you.
Yeah, so what events, it's just the question here, what moments from the novel do these book covers capture?
Oh, okay. Okay, the first cover is talk about the time, I think.
Yeah.
We have a party at the beach.
Okay.
And then I think this is Tom. This is Tom.
It's Tom, yeah. He had a beautiful car. Yeah, Tom.
Daisy and they kind of talking something. And
this one?
This one.
What's this?
Like, I mean, I don't know. Looks like maybe Daisy, and she's pretty desperate when she's singing something, or
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know.
This is, I think this is the Ashes. Do you know the Ashes?
Ashes.
Is it this first or second chapter? I can't remember now.
Ashes is
First chapter.
the place that in the city where Tom meet his lovers.
It's not in the middle. It's in between.
In between. Okay.
Yeah, and this is important actually.
Okay. Okay.
Where its position is actually important. It's done intentionally. If you want, let me see. Can I? If you want, you should look up T.S. I can't write very well.
Yeah.
T.S. Eliot's Wasteland.
Okay. T.S. Wasteland. Okay, I'll look that up.
Yeah, you can read you can go on YouTube and actually you can listen. It's a poem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's about it's a long poem. Takes about 20 minutes. But this poem, the Wasteland, T.S. Eliot's Wasteland, it was written during this period of time, just after World War I.
Okay.
And it heavily influenced the modern writers, and actually still influences many writers today.
Okay.
It's a key poem.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, quite fascinating actually. But we won't read it together. But if you like to, you can go have a look.
Okay, I'll have.
Okay, how about this?
This one is Gatsby is a workout of his own mansion, and then go to the beach and look at the Daisy's house. There's a green light.
Yes.
The Daisy's house.
Now the green light, I'm not sure if you realize, but it's very symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
And the color is also very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure, I'm sure probably it's the same thing in Chinese, but in English, we have meanings to color.
Okay, green means
right.
hope, right?
Yes. It can mean multiple things, okay. But I don't want to get into it quite now. But the green is quite significant. What about, we'll skip this one. And these also refer to color. Okay, we're going to skip those. Okay. What themes?
What themes?
What themes are these, do you think? Do you want to look again? Oops.
This one? The first one?
Those are your themes.
Yeah, so first one is about love and wealth.
Okay, love and wealth, good. This one?
Is emotion.
Which
theme.
one? Which one?
It's about compassion and forgiveness.
Okay. This one?
This one. This one is isolation.
Okay, great. And this one?
This one is. So I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Which is the most? We'll skip 3. Which is the most effective and why? Which cover is the most effective?
To cover.
Which you like the most?
I think the second one, because it makes.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Implies a great feeling.
Okay. Remember, this is the ashes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna move on. Yeah. Oops. How much time do we have? Oh, good. So this is like 5 minutes long. Do you mind if I just play this? Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think you need to stop sharing, and when you start sharing, you need to take there's option. in the dialogue, it says share my computer sound. Otherwise, I cannot hear. So when you click start share screen, at the dialog box, on the bottom, there's a...
Oh, yeah, I see.
You share your computer sound.
Okay.
In the 1920s,
yes,
and all seems well with the world. The sun is shining down on a society that seems to be happily heading down its newly built highways in their cheaply built Model T Ford cars towards a bright future. The roaring 20s. Roaring not just because of the noise of cars on the road, but also the roar of industry booming. Wealth increasing for the rich industrialists, and the growing roar of the city streets as they grew both out and upwards in a building boom. The jazz age is swinging into life in the speakeasies and dance rooms of New York, Chicago, and New Orleans. Mary Pickford and Clara Bow are lighting up the silver screens of Hollywood and creating the new ideal of the flapper for young American women. Meanwhile, although Prohibition has banned the sale of alcohol, the cities of America party like never before, enjoying the illicit thrill of visits to the speakeasy. All seems well. But meanwhile, lurking below the surface is division and intolerance. With immigration, once the lifeblood of the American melting pot bringing talent and eager workers into the country, quotas for entry had been introduced, a mark of suspicion and distrust. The Red Scare, leading to wild accusations fueled by a fear of the approach of communism, and culminating with the show trial and conviction of the anarchists Sacco and Vanzetti. Linked to this suspicion of the outsider was the move towards isolationism, the creation of tariffs to protect American industry from competition, but which also ended up cutting off foreign markets for farmers, worsening the problems that they were experiencing. As well as intolerance towards the immigrants from outside the country, it was also directed at the minorities within it. African Americans, who had long suffered in the southern states, continued to face the consequences of the vindictive and racist Jim Crow laws and the violence and intimidation of the resurgent Ku Klux Klan, who targeted not just the black community, but any who were different from their limited idea of the true white Anglo-Saxon Protestant American. Many black people took the decision to leave the restrictive South and seek a new life in the cities of the North. Native American communities were also a continuing target of suspicion, neglect, and restrictions that confined them to their meagre reservations. Religion was another bastion of division, with the Scopes Monkey Trial showcasing the rural strength of Christian fundamentalism, with its literalist views on creation and a host of other subjects. A strength which had already seen fruition in the campaign for and the success of the Volstead Act, introducing prohibition in the 18th Amendment to the Constitution. The place of women was another battleground, with young city flappers enjoying the freedom of independence in their jobs, in their leisure, and in their relationships, challenging the norms of traditional womanhood as wives and mothers. All of these divisions can be summed up in the overarching tension that continued throughout the decade of rural versus urban America. The rural farmers suffering, decreasing profits, hardship, where the cities grew with industrial strength year after year. The white majority rural communities and the more cosmopolitan urban populations. The oppression of African Americans in the rural South and their opportunities in the urban North. The religiously conservative and teetotal rural states against the modernizing alcohol-fueled cities, and the city flappers and their challenge to the country home-loving women. All of these factors resulted in a country that was booming, yes. But was it also tearing itself apart?
Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
So, what do you take from that?
I learned about that at the 1920s, at that ages, how the society divided. I mean, some people become rich and some people become poor. Then there's lots of confliction, and this author addressed the problem that the many people under the not such rich, when they trying to earn more through their work, but they have experienced lots of issues that the society put on them.
Can you make any links to China from this?
Links to China? Yes. Yeah, I think the China society have the similar problem now, because especially in recent 10 years, when the way the in the industry has grown a lot, and then so there's a I think it's about maybe 10% of the people, they become very rich, and then they collect most of the money. But about more than half the percentage of people, they become poorer than before.
And where do those poor people live?
Most in the country, in the rural area, in the not the I think in the northwest part of the China, most part.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about minorities?
Minorities, they are experiencing the political compress, not a compress. How do you say? They are losing their political rights.
Oh, okay.
In Xinjiang and in some area, like, because they're not allowed to express their opinion, and they are not allowed to
So what about isolationism? Is there isolationism in China?
Isolation,
Not really, right?
Yeah, not really. But just people lose lots of freedom now. People are not allowed to express their feeling and opinions freely. So
isolationism is an economic term. So isolationism is actually what Trump is doing now.
Oh, okay.
So he puts tariffs on other countries. He says he's protecting the American market, but in reality, and China is actually part of that, they cut off a lot of the farmers' products going into China, right? Like beef and whatever else, cheese or something like this.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that Gatsby wrote this in 1925, and it's based, I mean, the Roaring Twenties were gone by that point, but they went into the Great Depression. But the elements of these things, these religion, women, rural versus urban, minorities, immigration, and isolationism is still very prevalent in society. We're still talking about them. They are still front and center in China, in America, in wherever. They are still in Europe. They are still very much part of our human experience, right?
Yeah.
And this is why, partly why, the novel is so successful. We call it timeless, right? So it can be read and interpreted in the same way or in a variety of ways throughout time. Yeah, and that's the primary. I would say you're not going to find a great definition, but I would say that's the primary determining factor about how you decide something is literature or just writing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Understand.
Oops. How do I go on? Oh, yeah. There. So we're not going to make notes, but what is this lost generation?
Lost generation.
The generation after what?
Just after the boom.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Prohibition?
Prohibition. I don't know.
Prohibition, I'm not sure if you're aware, but in the United States, it comes from the word prohibit. Just take out the ION. Prohibit. It means to not allow. Yeah. So in the United States, during this period of time, the sale of alcohol was illegal.
Oh, okay. Okay, now I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So Canada actually benefited a lot from this.
Oh yeah, he sell the alcohol secretly.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, where I'm from, the province where I'm from, a lot of our rum, which is alcohol, would come from Barbados, down that area, and then it would come to Canada, and then we would put it on the boat and we'd take it down to the United States and sell it. The Kennedy family, do you know JFK?
JFK.
Robert Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, yeah.
Yeah.
So they were the very wealthy, very rich, powerful family. They were actually selling alcohol. They're one of most of their wealth came from the sale of alcohol.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course the mafia was involved in this and so on. All right. So what about jazz rhythms?
Jazz rhythm. It's a popular rhythm of song.
Yes. So the whole, like from New Orleans and down the south, because it actually was primarily it's black music, right? Black people. It came from black people, not white people, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a mix between like African. There's some roots to African music in it, right? And it's very kind of, I don't know, it has a fast beat. People used to dance to it. And the flappers, see over here, the flappers?
Flapper, no.
Over here on the bottom right?
Yeah.
Can you see my cursor? Flapper? Yeah. So
yeah.
Flappers are young women who drink and dance to jazz music.
Okay.
Yeah. And they kind of broke the mold because what defines the modern period of literature is that it breaks the Victorian age, like Jane Austen, this type of thing. You know Jane Austen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Victorian, right?
Yeah.
So the modern, that's Victorian age writing. Modern writing, modern literature, is the break from Victorian, right? So in Victorian times, women had to be very neat and proper, and so on and so forth, had to eat a certain way. The flappers were messy, they were drunk, they were dancing to music, they were wearing short skirts, they had kind of like short haircuts. That was very popular. So exhibiting not necessarily feminine hairstyles anymore, more of they're androgynous. This is why Jordan is very important in the novel. She's a pure flapper, and Nick, of course, has a relationship with her. Yeah. Okay.
What is Lucky Lindy? Lindy Lucky, the flapper?
Singer, I think.
Singer, Lucky Lindy. Okay.
Okay, so you want to read this? You want me to read it?
I can try to read it.
Okay.
Literature modernism, or modernist literature, had its origins in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, mainly in Europe and North America. Modernism is characterized by a self-conscious break with traditional styles of poetry and verse. Modernists experienced with literacy form and expression, adhering to Ezra Pound's maximum to make it
poet. Yeah.
Okay. The modernist literature movement was driven by a conscious desire to overturn the traditional model of
traditional modes. Yeah.
The mode of representation and express a new sensibility of their time. It's debatable when the modernist literature movement began, though some have chosen 1910s as roughly making the beginning, and quote novel Virginia Woolf, who declared that human nature underwent a fundamental change on or about December 1910. But modernism was already stirring by
1899.
With works such as Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, while Alfred Jarry's absurdist play Abel Royal appeared even earlier in 1896.
Right. So that kind of gives you the context of an idea of the modernist and literature, and also how the Great Gatsby fits. It's actually a key. If you're going to talk about modernist literature, you're going to talk about T.S. Eliot for sure. You're going to talk about Virginia Woolf. You're going to talk about Fitzgerald. You're going to talk about Conrad. These are all the mainstays of modernist writers.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Oops. I messed it up.
No problem.
Okay. I think actually that might be a good place to stop.
Okay.
So we're going to talk a little about Marxism and how it affects the novel. It is there. And we're going to look at some questions here.
Okay.
And then we're going to look through. Eventually, we're going to get into more about Nick and the start of chapter 1. Okay. And then, so if you want to, you can go ahead and read chapter 2 if you like, or you can do some research or whatever you want to do.
Okay.
Yeah. So before you go, I want you to tell me 3 things you learned today.
Or 3
things you found interesting, or three things you learned, or just 3 things.
Okay. Learn the themes of the novel, and then I learned about the features of the special period in the 1920s. How the society separate. And I learned about something about the author.
Yes. Okay. Great. Did you enjoy the lesson?
Yeah. I like it. Yeah.
Okay. So, do you want me to continue in this way then?
Yes. And then you can maybe give me some a little bit homework.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll do that next time, not this time, okay?
Okay.
All right. Okay, well, thank you very much, and take care, and then we'll chat. We chat anyway, so
Okay.
have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, bye.